This day opened with a panel session about cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin. So we are having now Henri Arslanian, who is a fintech and crypto leader at PwC. So let's speak about crypto.
Sure.
And about the panel. So was something new during this panel, and did you have any fresh ideas about the potential of cryptocurrency?
So thank you first, great to be here. To be fair, I mean, obviously I'm a big believer in the potential of cryptocurrencies and blockchain and decentralization. I think what really came out from the panel discussion today we had was some of the different views that people were addressing. For example, one of the elements that we discussed was really the outsized positive impact that it can have on emerging markets, for example, where blockchain technology on elements like land titles, for example, to even reducing the cost for remittances on cross-border basis. So really the practical impact that it can have on countries in emerging markets, and especially for a country like Armenia as well.
As an expert on crypto, can you provide any data? How many people are using crypto these days? And so what about turnover of crypto assets?
Sure. First of all, I'd like to say, I would tell everybody is whoever tells you they're an expert in crypto, you got to run away. I spend 24/7 of my time in this space, and I can tell you honestly, I have absolutely no idea where this industry will be 1 month from now. Okay. So I think we have to always, I think it's a very humbling sector to be in. No, I mean, there's obviously a lot of, when you look at the volumes today of the crypto markets, which is now, we have over $200 billion in market cap. I would say really varies on a daily basis, but around 70% of that is really Bitcoin. So Bitcoin that remains still the most, from market cap perspective, the most active. From a volume perspective, one thing you often see is there is a stable coin that often sees a lot more volume. What is a stable coin? Is a crypto asset that is backed one-to-one by US dollars or other fiat currency. So we're seeing quite a bit of uptick on that as well. But I would say really where you're seeing the majority activity right now is really when it comes to Bitcoin more broadly.
So you were predicting decentralization of financial markets. And for example, according to some reports, neighboring Georgia is a country with the largest number of miners, Bitcoin miners. So can you say that these centers of mining and centers of finance are switching to some unpredictable spots on the map?
It's a good question. I think we really need to separate where the Bitcoin or crypto mining is taking place and where the activity is taking place, if you want. When it comes to mining, I really do not think that if a country has a lot of mining activity, it's necessarily going to be a big crypto center. I'll give you, for example, according to, there's different data, but ballpark, it is estimated that about 70% of crypto mining today happens in China, actually in a province in Sichuan. And there's various reasons to that. Often it's subsidized electricity to availability of electricity and so on and so forth. In many other countries, from Canada to many countries in Scandinavia, I think that's very different from where the Bitcoin is being mined to where it's being used. What I would say at the global level, when I talk about innovation in the digital asset space, I would actually say that where I'm seeing a lot of the activity is in Asia, hubs like Hong Kong, Singapore, Korea, and Japan. But as well, I would say that a lot of the former Soviet republics, that we call, Russia, the Eastern Europe, there's a lot of very great engineering talent, including in Armenia, that I'm seeing. I would say a part of that, where I see really some of the big hubs right now, is obviously in Switzerland, where you still have a big crypto ecosystem. And otherwise, it's really still in the US, where you have a lot of, especially at where finance meets, crypto meets traditional finance, from crypto asset management to crypto funds. There's a lot of activity in the US from that perspective.
Many people are interested in Libra. Libra, it's like a term that is getting more and more popular on search engines too. So Facebook announced the launch of Libra 2020, but then they said that they are postponing it, or they seem to be postponing it. But many people criticize them, and even Apple's Tim Cook said it was a power grab. So what do you think? What should we expect from this, and will it impact our lives?
Yeah, there's been obviously a lot of announcements. I haven't heard about a postponement, I think, but what I would say is that Libra's announcement, I personally believe that since the creation of Bitcoin, is probably the biggest news in broader digital assets and broader crypto markets. I actually believe that it is a chance that when we look back at the history of money, the history of finance in 50 years, 100 years, we may look at Libra as a pivotal moment that catalyzed really the transformation of financial services. I think it's very interesting with Libra because if you talk about the initial Bitcoin maximalists, people believe in decentralization. There's been some negative comments on Libra. Others believe it's actually probably the biggest event that really took place. I personally believe that it's a very important experiment, and that actually, regardless of what happens with Libra, one thing that it clearly made the impact was it brought it on top of the news channels like yourselves. That any board of a financial institution now needs to have a strategy on crypto assets, or especially on Libra. Central banks, this was a big wake-up call for many central banks who believed that Bitcoin didn't really matter, didn't really meet a critical point. In any event, I have to say that whether Libra works or doesn't work, it really catalyzed a transformation and the awareness around digital markets. I personally believe that where I see a great use case for Libra is often not at the country level. If you look at within the United States, within countries like Australia or Hong Kong or many others, national level payments are often not perfect, but they work okay. It's not that bad. There's a lot of improvement, by the way. But where I see a big chance for this is on a cross-border basis. Think about the migrant Bangladeshi worker in Dubai who wants to send money back home to his family, or the Filipino domestic helper in Hong Kong who wants to send money back home, or actually many members of the Armenian diaspora, they're in Russia, for example, want to send money back home. I think there's a lot of these elements where I really believe Libra could play a role. Today globally, the average fee that we pay for cross-border payments is between 5 to 7%. In many emerging countries like Africa, it's almost 20%. And I find that completely unacceptable. So I'm hoping Libra could have a role in that. The other thing, by the way, which I find we don't often talk too much about it, is where the Libra was obviously, they mentioned quite clearly in their announcements when they made it this summer, was the role of micropayments. I mean, as we're moving to an era of Internet of Things, with 5G, where a lot of the transactions are happening behind the scenes, or it's the machine-to-machine economy. A lot of these financial transactions that will happen, they're not going to happen via swift bank transfers like we know today. They're all going to happen behind the scenes almost instantaneously, and that you can only have it via cryptocurrency. And potentially, that could be an opportunity for Libra as well.
Thank you very much for being with us.